It
And I mean, it
happens all
doesn't
over the
in
world.
this series. It didn't even matter. There are no fans. It doesn't even matter.
Again, I've heard some feeble excuses about, oh, the chefs need to prepare the food. If they,
So
if
what?
they,
Because at the end of the day, we all just want to watch more cricket. So, hello and welcome to a new episode of Silly Point. Unfortunately, the England-Pakistan Test match was a frustrating draw, thanks to rain. And as much as we would have loved to discuss player ratings and performances and all that we've been doing previously, we can't really do much of that after just essentially one day of cricket overall. Some good.
130 overs, and I think this test match is in the top 10 shortest test matches in England.
Yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't even count the 30, 40 odd overs today because I don't think there was any intent from anyone to seriously play any
Yeah.
proper cricket. I think it was good practice for the likes of Crawley and Sibley and Abbas got a few wickets, but overall, I don't think it really had any impact. Yeah, but that's the frustration of cricket. I think that kind of this whole test match and previously as well, there've been occasions where cricketing rules and laws have been so rigid. Rain is something you can't do anything about, of course. You can't play in the rain. But there needs to be flexibility now, especially in the modern game. The rain is what it is, but things like bad light and you know drying the ground and having like we saw on day 4 where there was bright daylight for 2 or 3 hours and still no cricket. With all the technology available and all those things combined, I think cricket needs an upgrade. So, Gaurav, where do we start? I know the ICC have said something that they want to discuss improving this, but where can we go from here?
Sure. So, in my opinion, and I think we've throughout the test match, I know we've had some discussions about this, on WhatsApp among all the Silly Point pundits. My personal opinion is the umpires going off a bad light. I think that's reasonable, and the only reason I say that is because you know it's up to them to decide when when the state when the conditions become dangerous for the players to play in, and if things go wrong from that perspective, then the umpires are legally liable. Anyone can come back and sue them because it was their decision to carry on play, and then a fielder gets hit or whatever happens. So I think umpires are very, very cautious about the bad light episode. The other thing is the ICC haven't made it very transparent.
Yeah.
Right. So the rule about bad light is that it's up to the umpires to decide, but the way they decide it is they actually take a light meter reading. I think they do it on the first day just to get a benchmark, and then that is the benchmark for the rest of the test. So anytime they pull out the right light meter, and it goes above that benchmark, then they take the players off. And I think that isn't transparent. We don't know what benchmarks are set.
Yeah.
When they take out the light meter is arbitrary.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of transparency that goes missing in that. The other thing is they stop play when they think the artificial light has taken over, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Why have floodlights then?
What's the point exactly?
What's the point of having the floodlights? So if if they stop playing when the floodlights completely take over, then just stop play when without using the floodlight. And how do you decide when the artificial lights have been completely taken over from natural light? It's also arbitrary. And then the other thing is play times at the start of the day, and then having your lunch break and your tea break. That is the most frustrating thing for me, especially when so obviously the reasoning that the ECB doesn't start test matches earlier, and that the main reason for that is because they don't want spectators to miss out. So if, for example, 7 o'clock the previous day, they decide, okay, we're going to have an early start at 10 a.m. It's impossible to get that message out to 25,000 fans in a reasonable time so that they can come in. And then the ECB is liable to, ticket refunds and extra costs.
Yeah, but it happens everywhere else in the world, right? And I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Look, I mean, people have access to internet or email or whatever, so they can easily inform them with one email, a mass email out to everyone.
Yeah.
saying we've informed you. They can update. I'm sure they all have social media platforms.
Yeah.
And people know, right? People who are going to a game, they know that there's been a rain delay the previous day. So they know that there is a potential for an early start, so they will look out for that.
Feeble
That,
excuses, I think. I think
exactly.
that's a feeble excuse from the ECB. It
And I mean,
happens
it
all
doesn't
over the world.
in this series. It doesn't even matter. There are no fans. It doesn't even matter.
Exactly. I mean, look at Sri Lanka. Great example. I think out of all the cricket playing nations, Sri Lanka and maybe India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they're the countries that get a lot of rain. And when it
Yeah,
rains in those countries, it really does rain quite heavily. And I know Sri Lanka, they've got some of the fastest ground staff.
yeah,
And it's not like in Sri Lanka, they don't only cover the pitch, they cover
yeah,
the whole ground. They've
yeah. I
got
think
this
that's the other
huge,
thing.
they've got this huge plastic cover, and there are about 100 people around that, and they just quickly bring it onto the whole pitch and the outfield, and they cover the whole thing. So again, what is the ECB doing in that regard, or what is the ICC doing in that regard?
For the life of me, I understand why they can't just invest a little bit and try and get rid of that problem, especially in a country like England where it happens every year. I mean, to a large extent, the beginning of the World Cup last year was spoiled by it as well. I would argue that hindered Pakistan's progress as well. But it's really farcical. I mean, it doesn't encourage people to continue watching Test
Yeah.
cricket,
Mm-mm.
and even things like they can be flexible with the ball. I know they don't want to be fair on one team or the other. They don't want to be unfair on one team or the other with
Yeah.
changing, to a pink ball or whatever. But I
True.
mean, for the sake of getting a game on, isn't that relatively small price to pay?
Yeah, I mean, so I have my opinions on what solutions
Yeah,
the ICC can practically apply,
yeah,
right? So I think the easiest thing to do is to be transparent about
yeah.
the bad light conditions.
I mean, with all the science and technology, I'm sure there must be some university research out there where you have reaction times over 22-yard distance, and if the
Yeah,
light is so and so, then
yeah,
that reaction time kind of
yeah.
falls or whatever,
I
and
mean,
they can easily get that and just have that one benchmark. If the light is below this,
yeah,
that's it, and that's the standard for everywhere. Huge credit to the ECB for actually making the series happen.
yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot behind the scenes, having the whole biosecure bubble and
yeah,
flying the West Indies and Pakistan on chartered flights and this and that. So they've invested a lot,
yeah,
and they've spent a lot of time researching. I'm sure they must have done that. But and this is a one-off. I mean, rain is a recurring factor in England, so that's something
yeah.
they should really invest their time in.
True.
I know there's a bit of a mix between what's ECC or what's ECB's domain and what's ICC's domain,
Yeah,
with the rules and starting times and this and that. But I'm sure
yeah,
they can come
yeah,
to a sensible conclusion.
yeah,
Given that they managed to get these two series, fingers crossed, pretty much without any issues, is a
yeah.
big success.
True.
And having
But
issues
this
like
this
yeah,
is dampening the whole. This is dampening the success. This is making things look pretty bad. So I think the other thing they can do very easily is start matches earlier.
that's the biggest.
Simple, start at 10 or start at half 10, right? And
Yeah,
be flexible with that start time as well.
yeah,
If you know tomorrow morning there's going to be bright sunshine at 10
yeah,
a.m. and the weather forecast is looking bad from 12 o'clock, then you just play from 10 to 12, right?
yeah.
And then when it's going to rain, you have your lunch,
Exactly.
right? And do all your drainage work, and make sure the ground is ready in that hour that the
Yeah,
players take for lunch. So I think start timings and breaks should
yeah.
be flexible.
Yeah,
It's
I
as
mean,
simple as
they
that.
play 50-over matches, right? Where they don't have a break for 50 overs, which is
Yeah,
about 3.5 hours. So
yeah,
why can't you do the same in a test match? Why does it have to be after two
yeah.
hours or after one
I
hour?
agree. I agree. So
What
that's,
does the food get cold after a while or?
I mean, again, I've heard some feeble excuses about, oh, the chefs need to prepare the food. If they,
So
if
what?
they, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems a little archaic. It seems, very kind of old school.
Yeah,
We've moved ahead in so many ways,
yeah,
and we just haven't moved ahead in this thing in terms
yeah.
of start times and finish times
I
and being
mean,
flexible.
yeah, I mean things like retractable roofs and this and that. I think is major investments, and that's not possible
Yeah,
for all grounds.
it's over 100 million
Yeah,
pounds, so I don't think
exactly.
that's going to
Maybe you
happen.
can have one ground, per country where you can have that, but that's yeah. I mean, not a feasible option at least. apart from just rules and regulations, I mean, there are some other suggestions which we also sort of saw in the first Test match between England and Pakistan, where Archer was bowling and the umpire said no, you can't bowl bouncers and this and that. But I think that's not fair on the bowling team to be forced to bowl a spinner or to be forced to not bowl bouncers. And I think that's slightly unfair to them, because that becomes a tactical thing where the batting team can get an unfair advantage because of the light.
I
Uh,
guess how do you decide that? Like, what would the criteria for something like that be?
but there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. That's what I'm saying. It should just be one benchmark for
Okay,
light, and you
okay.
play. You can play, you know, Shoaib Akhtar in that at 100 miles an hour. You can play,
Well, then
anyone.
in that case, the benchmarks are going to be really low. And anyways, we've now heard that the ICC technical committee, which is headed by Anil Kumble, they are going to be looking at this. So I'm hoping for a quick resolution, as quick as things could be changed for the final test match starting on
Yeah,
Friday.
I think the timing thing they're probably going to look at to change.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's very simple. I mean, the only thing that they have to consider is TV rights and stuff, but I don't think there's many other conflicting sports going on anyway. So I'm sure TV channels can alter their schedules if the game starts, an hour or so earlier.
Yeah.
And even with ending, I mean, there's this thing about there has to be 98 overs maximum in a day. Why? Why can it not be
Just bowl.
106? Why can it not be 110? I
Yeah,
mean, they've
you
been
bowl as many
sitting
as you can.
in the dressing room all day doing nothing. So why
Yeah.
can't they bowl 106 overs in one day? In the UK, light's pretty good till 8 p.m. So why can't you just play till 8 p.m.?
Yeah.
You
True.
know,
True.
just
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing has to be you have to get playing time in, right?
Maximize the
That has
playing
to
time.
be exactly that is the most important thing. And if you can't do that,
You have
what's the
to
point?
you have to maximize the playing time. I completely agree.
I mean, eventually, given the amount of rain that happened, this test match probably would have been a draw anyway.
Yeah.
But at least we could have had at least one more day of cricket all in all, which got lost because of all the inefficiencies.
It would have
Um,
allowed us to actually rate the players.
yeah, I mean, there's only one player that I'd like to discuss.
Yeah.
Uh, 10 years of absence. I don't even know what to call it. Unfair treatment, dropped again and again and again and again. Fawad Alam with his side on stance, four ball duck.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. I think it'll be very characteristic of Fawad's career if he gets dropped in this last test match just because of that
Don't
one
say that.
performance.
Don't say that. I mean, a legend retired just now, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who proved it doesn't really matter what your, a couple of failures don't matter. What matters is your character.
Yeah,
What matters is how you can come back, and he's shown that. So I just hope that the Pakistani management use him as a good example and say, right, he's only had one bad innings. The
yeah,
conditions when he came into bat were extremely difficult.
yeah,
So I just hope that, for me personally, technique is immaterial. Ever since
yeah.
Mahendra Singh Dhoni came to the fore, technique has gone out of the window.
Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, exactly, he's averaging
Yeah,
60, 70 as
exactly.
a test match batsman with that
Yeah,
technique. So
yeah,
all of those things are out of the window. I don't care what he does with his technique. If he scores runs,
exactly. And
if he stabilizes the middle order, that's what
I
matters.
think what sort of might save him is that nobody else in the team has really stood up to take that place anyway. I
Yeah,
mean, if anybody has to be dropped, I've been saying this since day one. It has to be Asad Shafiq. I think that guy, his time has come.
yeah,
He flopped again. He didn't get ducked, but he got 4 or 5.
yeah.
And if anyone has to go, it has to be him.
let's just
As
say that let's just say that if he was playing for another team
yeah,
that had the batting riches of an England or an India or Australia, he would have been dropped maybe 6 to 8 months ago.
yeah, for sure, definitely. There's just been and there's been no one ready. I think that's another debate about how
Yeah,
Pakistan have been poor in preparing replacements and stuff.
yeah,
But I mean, moving on to the last Test match, I think if we look at Pakistan, I think given the Pacers have got decent rest in this match, I don't think they'll have any changes in the pace attack.
yeah,
Abbas had a good end to Test match.
yeah,
The only question for me personally, I don't think the Pakistan team have, as I said before, they have the bleep to drop Asad, but I think they should drop Asad and play Shadab. But I don't think they'll lose. And I think Rizwan has also shown that he's a decent bat, so he can bat at number 6.
yeah.
But
I mean, for me, yeah, I agree. I don't think there should be any team changes. Asad Shafiq is a question mark, but given that it's almost a do or die situation, right?
Yeah.
For his experience, for playing 70, 75 test matches on the trot, I will give him this one test match, and maybe he scores a brilliant 100, and that seals his, that seals the series for Pakistan. They draw the test series, or then he performs really badly and he gets tossed for the next time Pakistan play a test match. So
Yeah.
I don't see a need to make a change. And if we come to England, uh,
Zach Roy played pretty well. I think he's secured
yeah,
himself.
he played really well. I think England's batting looks much better when they have Zach Rowley in the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Ben Stokes comes back, that's a separate conversation. But for this next test, I probably don't see any changes being made. The only change that could potentially happen is Sam Curran might drop out and Mark Wood might play, or maybe Jofra Archer. But apart from that, no changes to be made. Yeah,
And again, maybe Broadwell Anderson would have been rested, but um, they have, they've only bowled in one innings 4 days ago, so I don't think that's an issue for them either.
yeah,
So I think moving on, last predictions. I think my 1-1 is still on, and I'll stick to that. I think Pakistan, they showed glimpses. I mean, Rizwan with the bat. I think they all just need to come together. Shah needs to play that innings again.
yeah,
Rizwan needs to continue what he's doing. One of Asad or Azhar Ali needs to perform. And if that happens, I think the bowlers are pretty much doing their job anyway. So
yeah.
I think Pakistan have a very good chance of winning the last Test match and scoring the
Sure.
series.
I think given the way things have gone, I would also obviously change my prediction. My overall series prediction was 2-1, but
Right.
since we've lost this test match, I'm going to go with 1-all. Pakistan have got the momentum.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can actually convert that. But I would put it to them to actually win this one. So let's see what happens.
Let's see. What do you think, the audience, the fans? Does Fawad Alam deserve to stay in the team? Asad Shafiq should be dropped for Shadab, or somebody else needs to be dropped? Azhar Ali, maybe.
That ain't happening.
And more importantly, what do you think about the playing conditions? What needs to happen to give cricket an upgrade, uh, to get rid of all these frustrating scenarios? Do we need ping ball, or do we need to alter the starting times? Curtail the lunch breaks, this and that. Let us know what you think, because at the end of the day, we all just want to watch more cricket. So, I think the officials just need to be a bit more flexible to make sure the fans are getting what they want. Thanks for watching. And as always, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Thank you.